Christian Eriksen. Who thought in a million years we would be doing a tactical breakdown show on Christian Eriksen? Because I didn't. I certainly never thought in my wildest dreams we'd ever be talking about Christian Eriksen on one of these shows. But this is where we're at. This is the point at which our lives as Arsenal fans have come to, is that we're now talking about the possibility of Christian Eriksen joining Arsenal. Well, whether or not this is a load of BS or not is yet to be seen, but of course we need to look at it, we need to break it down, and we need to discuss it. So we're going to do all that in today's show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, in which we look at players in an analytical and statistical way and have a discussion about whether or not Arsenal should be looking to bring them in with the help of some expert insight. If you're new to the show, welcome. This is how it works. First off, we get the expert insight of a guest. They will tell you what they believe and think about the player and give you the most recent and most up-to-date information on that player. Then we go into the statistics of the player and have a look at that. And then on the end of the show, we have a discussion with our live chat, you guys, and talk about the player in question. And at the end of the show, we'll have a vote and we'll see what you think. Should we sign him? Should we sign someone else? Should we just not bother with anyone? Which is maybe what the club end up doing. So let's kick off the show with our expert insight, which this week does come from our very good friend, Rich Hall, who is the chief correspondent for Football Italia. So it's fair to say that he knows his darn stuff about Italian football, and for that reason he knows his stuff about Christian Eriksen. So, Rich, take it away.
What to say about Christian Eriksen and his time at Inter? It's certainly been an interesting one, and obviously now that Arsenal are linked, people will think, well, how's it been going since he arrived in Milan? It's not gone well, I'm afraid. I mean, we know that he had problems when he left certain rivals of yours some time ago. And let's get the context of this. At the time, the Suning Group and Steven Zhang, who's one of the owners of the Suning, saw Christian Eriksen on a free transfer and thought it was too good to miss, and obviously the wages came along and that he moved over there. At the time, though, Conte was looking at a completely different type of player. He ended up getting a lot of his men, but in his head was another guy you guys might know. He wanted Giroud, he wanted Vidal, he wanted Kolarov, he wanted experience to back up what was a young and effective team. Now, Conte's coming to a lot of criticism this year because it hasn't quite worked. They've not been as effective as they should have been. Some of the older players like Kolarov and Matteo Darmian haven't performed. But yeah, this was all based on the fact of him getting the best out of the likes of Romelu Lukaku, Alexis Sanchez, etc. before. Lots of names which are familiar to you guys. Christian Eriksen hasn't really played. Yes, he's played for Denmark, and if you watched him just for Denmark, you think he played quite well, and he has. They wanted to play him in the trequartista role, which is basically the number 10, just deep behind Lautaro Martinez and Lukaku. Now, the problem is Conte's explained this recently as well. He said that every single, and he wants to develop a culture of winning, a culture of victory, as he calls it. And what he means by that is that every player has to run and chase and press. You look at the likes of the explosive Nicola Barella, who's actually now playing where Christian Eriksen was meant to play. There's no time in Conte's mind for this player. He wants to take some time in the ball, operate with these nice passes, because Conte's idea is to sit deep and press and really break on the attack, or absolutely overrun teams. Now, they've done that a lot this, especially last season, at the start of this season. And Eriksen, when he's featured, hasn't been up to the pace. He recently said, it's not been my dream at Inter, it's not how I imagined it to be. And Conte responded to that. And he quite quickly said, his players have to be physical, they have to be fast. And this is the quote, talent should be a given when you play for Inter. The rest is what's important to him. Now, Eriksen's not that player. How would he be at Arsenal and back into Premier League? Well, I don't know, because he didn't play particularly well at the back end of his time at Spurs. I also know that Arsenal have got a very, very talented guy who doesn't particularly run very much, and he's also ostracised at the moment, and Christian Eriksen's wages would be expensive. However, are Inter willing to let him go? I think so. I think Conte will really want to push this through. He's talking about his projects. He still thinks he can get a run on Juventus, who, let's face it, under Andrea Pirlo aren't perfect, and so there is a chance that Christian Eriksen could leave. Inter have got a few players in their books that they want to offload, and so he could certainly be one. But again, is this? I can't tell you guys whether this is a situation where Eriksen's just can't perform in a place where he's not particularly happy. Could he stay at Inter? Yes, but I still don't think he'd get a huge amount of game time, and especially with his ambitions himself, he will want to do that. We all know he's an extremely gifted player, so it depends, of course, on price again. Inter would want to make money on that and reinvest it. So watch this space, because Conte doesn't want him. Inter fans are nonplussed. At first, they couldn't understand why not. But again, he doesn't seem to suit that system. So it's an interesting one. And who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, I think that's the only way to really sum up this situation with Christian Eriksen, is a bit of who knows, because I've come back and forth, it's fair to say, with the whole Eriksen situation. It's just a bit of a strange one, because you've got a player that's clearly very, very talented, not doing a whole lot at a big club like Inter Milan. Now, let's have a look at some of the stats and see how he's performing, and then we'll go into the live chat and we'll get your thoughts around this man. So, this is for the current season in the Champions League and in Serie A, in Calcio. And as you can see, for a player that's based around passing, an 86.7% pass completion rate really does concern me. I would want that to be higher. Passes into the final third, 84%. On average, he's doing about just under 10 of those per game. And then passes into the penalty area, 45.5%. Now, that's quite good. An accuracy of just under 50% for passes that are going into the penalty area is pretty good. But the problem is that whilst they're happening 4 or so times in each game, they're not actually like that good. They're not like chance creating. They're not, what's the right way to put it? They're not efficient. And that has led to him so far with 2 goals and 2 assists last season when he joined. And then this season, he's yet, I believe, to register a single goal or a single assist so far. Yeah, that is right. He's had 2 shots all season in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games that he has played. But that's still 226 minutes and he's not managed a single goal or assist. Now, on the face of it, I was a bit like, you know what? Yeah, like I actually would be quite interested in getting Christian Eriksen in, especially on like a short-term deal. And I think that when you kind of look at the player that he was when he was at Spurs, he was one of those players that I looked at as very much, I want this guy on the team. I don't want him playing for Spurs. I want like the running, the creation, the goals that he would score, the free kicks, the corners and set pieces is something that Arsenal desperately needed something in for a long time. But the thing is that I think there's a romantic element to it. And I say romantic because if you don't think there's anything romantic about Arsenal taking a player that Spurs fans look at almost heavenly, then you need to get your head screwed on, because there is something utterly brilliant about Arsenal taking any of Spurs' good players. I mean, it just harks back to the whole Sol Campbell situation. And there hasn't really been an incident since then that could rival that. And whilst it's not going directly from Spurs to Arsenal, it's going as pretty darn close as you could from one winter window to the next. Now, this now builds down to, do I think there's any kind of credence in this? And the answer is maybe. I don't know, that sounds like a bit of a cop-out answer, but there is all the possibility in the world that Arsenal could be interested in signing Christian Eriksen, because Arsenal desperately need some creativity. And we know that that's the case. We know that Arsenal have been looking at Houssem Aouar. We know that Arsenal have been looking at Dominic Szoboszlai. And now we're being linked with Christian Eriksen, who is wanting a way out of Inter Milan, and he wants to be getting more minutes, and he did very well in the Premier League. So it is very easy for the Italian media, where this is coming from, at Corriere dello Sport, to make this link. But sociologically, from the point of view of Eriksen, would he leave Inter and burn every bridge that he ever built throughout the majority of his career at Spurs and move to Arsenal? And that's the biggest sticking point for me. I think that Arsenal probably do have an interest in making this deal maybe happen, but whether or not it's feasible, I'm not sure. It would take a hell of a lot of money to convince Christian Eriksen. He's on a fair chunk already at Inter Milan. You're looking 200k plus, as far as I'm aware. So I think it would cost a hell of a lot of money to convince him. It would still cost a transfer fee, even though he wants out because he's under contract. And they paid 17 odd million quid for him when he only had 6 months left on his contract. So it was one of those situations where you're sitting there and you're going, it seems good on paper, but I really kind of struggle. Now, I've had a few Twitter conversations with people on social media, so I'm really interested to get your thoughts in the live chat as to what you think. Now, the thing that we haven't kind of covered, as Glenn Cook kind of brings up, is the whole Jackass swap scenario, which is really strange in itself because moving on a central midfielder for an attacking centre mid is two very different roles. Xhaka has been very important in what Arteta wants to do. And for that reason, I think that it would be odd of all things to kind of see that swap take place. Xhaka might want out. He's seen Thomas Partey come in. He's seen Mohamed El Neni get minutes. He knows that there's other players in the team like Dani Ceballos and arguably Mainsley that are going to be trying to vie for that central midfield position throughout the next 6 to 12 months. And he could fall out of favour with Arteta and arguably has done a little bit. So there is all the hope. I don't think it's hope, but there's all the realism that this deal could happen in terms of Xhaka leaving the club. But whether it's in a swap deal for Eriksen, I don't know. Glenn says, anyway, Eriksen for Xhaka is astute business. Ozil isn't going to play. Willian hasn't played in the last 10, played in that 10 role. And Eriksen is a perfect fit for it. It's swap loan deal, so it's not much risk either. Now, if it was a swap loan deal, that could be okay. But to be honest, I look at Granit Xhaka and I think, if you're going to sell him, he's worth a fair chunk. Now, in my mind, he's worth between 20 and 30 million quid for his age, his experience. He's captain of Switzerland, whether or not that has actually any bearing at all. But he's a full-fledged international that does very well on the international stage and has been a consistent player in terms of the amount of minutes that he's got in the Premier League. And that does count towards a certain amount of value. Now, do you then say that 20 to 30 million pounds that you maybe could have got for Granit Xhaka, you then use that up on bringing in Christian Eriksen? I don't know. Especially considering that amount of money is the same amount of money as Dominic Szoboszlai's release clause, which is 25 million euros. So that I kind of find hard to get my head around. But then you have to think, if you sell Xhaka, you have to find a buyer. So who is going to buy Granit Xhaka in the January window for 20 to 30 million pounds? I don't know. Hertha Berlin, maybe. I don't think they've really got the money to be splashed around in the winter window. Inter Milan want him as a kind of an alternative to N'Golo Kante. But are they really going to spend 20 to 30 million pounds on Granit Xhaka? Again, I don't think so. So there's that. Tomodo10 says we should be going for Jobless. I can't spell his name, sorry. You're pretty close. And then when we get that big wage money off us in the summer, we can go for someone like Aouar as well, as someone who can partner Partey. And I like that idea. Arguably partnering someone like Aouar next to Partey with a Jobless in a more advanced role, that's stuff for dreams for me. But whether or not that actually would happen, I just don't know. Ross Taylor says, I would take him over Aouar any day of the week. Eriksen is Premier League proven. Now, yes, he has proven himself in the Premier League. Towards the end of his stint with Spurs, he weren't great, as Rich said on his little clip there. And also his time at Inter has not been that great either. In fact, he's got 2 goals and 2 assists in the league and the cup, or league and Champions League, the whole time that he's been there. I think they may be slightly off, but they're not. It's not prolific, is it? Those statistics, really. And I know he's not played too much, and I know that he's in a psychologically a tough position because he wants to move on and he wants to get more minutes. But the more I kind of talk about Eriksen, on the first kind of mention of his name, the romanticism of it, the ex-Spurs kind of bit, going to Arsenal, really getting one over on them lot, I think that kind of took over my opinion in some ways. And so now I've had time to reflect and think about this situation. I'm more lean on the side of, I don't think this is very wise. I think that we can get a better option that's younger. Now, I had a few conversations with people on Twitter where they put those points forward. And what I try and do on Twitter is I never go into a conversation where I'm going to go, this is the right way to think about it. I'm going to ask some questions. And by asking those questions, you find out a little bit more. And the kind of response that I was getting was that we should be targeting someone younger. And at the end of the day, I do tend to agree with that. But I think it's important that you do question things. And I think the whole swap deal just makes this too good to be true and maybe a little easy to report, especially from an Italian perspective, where obviously that's where the player is situated now. So that's kind of where my head's landing on this. The Real Jackass says, that's harsh. Eriksen has hardly started at all. Not sure he even has at all. And to be honest, I understand why that's harsh, that you can judge a player off very little performance. But if anything, Janice, I think that goes into one of the arguments to say it's a big risk to take on someone to bring them in after they've not started for a long time and hadn't played too well towards the end of their time at Spurs, that we should then be going for it. So I struggle to really kind of push the boat out on Eriksen for that reason. Kuriko says, I agree. If we can sell Xhaka for 20 to 30, we should be able to afford someone like Jobless in the winter, then Aouar hopefully in the summer. We 100% need both for Arteta style of play. Iron Cub says, if it's a 6-month loan, I'd take both Milik and Eriksen, since I don't think we can afford Aouar. Now, I don't think Arsenal are going to do any significant business in January, is my instinct. I don't think Arsenal have got the financial muscle to be able to do something significant in January. And when I say significant, I'm talking 20 million minimum. I don't think Arsenal have got any kind of rhetoric unless they're able to sell anyone, which I don't think they're going to do, because all the players they could sell are pretty much on the end of their deals and can just negotiate end of contract agreements with other clubs. And I don't think there's going to be enough competition in those players to muster any kind of bid. So for that reason, I think Arsenal are going to go into the low market if they are going to bring someone in. And if they are going to bring someone in, it could be Eriksen for 6 months. And if it's Eriksen for 6 months over nothing, I'm more inclined to kind of go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because Arsenal could do with the added creativity in the midfield. If it's Eriksen on a permanent situation, I'm less inclined to go down that route. If it was a loan with an option in which Eriksen comes in and absolutely smashes it, then at least you've protected yourself in that instance from, say, his price going up. But I just can't see this deal really taking place in any kind of seriousness, especially down to the social level of him kind of cutting all ties with Spurs, which again I don't really see happening either. Peace Tembo says, Eriksen pressed in Pochettino's system. He can turn his form around similar to James Rodriguez. James was out of favour with Zidane. He comes to Everton and he turns this form around. Eriksen could do the same. Now, I think it's the thing about James Rodriguez is we're looking at things in a very closed analysis. To start the season, he was great. Since that, he's had his injury issue and then he's looked a little bit off. He hasn't implemented his game on the last few fixtures for Everton, and that's cost them points, not having that James Rodriguez that was there at the start. And I think what people need to look at James Rodriguez and just have a look at him across the whole season, see where that kind of comes out as to whether it was a successful signing or not. Everton are now being linked with Isco, which is someone else I've seen people say that Arsenal could go for. And again, I think that's a very similar situation, because you've got arguably someone that would come in and make an immediate impact, but in the long term, it doesn't work in the best interests of the club. And I kind of fall on that side of things to do with Eriksen as well. If you want to find someone that's going to help Arsenal creatively, find someone that you can invest in and find someone that's going to last at the club for a fair few years and can actually fit into Arteta's system rather than someone like Eriksen. And then it also adds that we've signed Partey, 27-year-old, fantastic world-class player. Brilliant. Do we need to add another player of that similar age in the midfield that would then mature and age at the same kind of rate? I kind of want to see a bit more diversity in that midfield, if I'm honest. El Neni, again, 28, I believe he is too. So that would instantly mean that your starters and Xhaka are all around those late kind of 20 ages, which I think is something that you want to avoid so that you don't end up in a situation like we've seen with Barcelona, where a lot of their biggest players became very old very quickly and they've begun to decline, and then they've panicked and they've gone out and they've like splashed money on, say, Griezmann, on Coutinho, on Ousmane Dembele. And now only just recently are they starting to see the error of their ways and then go out to sign Pedri and Trincao and weirdly Pjanic, which made no sense. But anyway, I'll go off on a tangent moaning about Barcelona. But the point is I think that Arsenal need to focus more so on looking to get players in that are going to be here for the long term, or they're going to play an Arteta system. Now, I don't think it's going to happen in January. as I've said. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that Arsenal need to make any further mistakes in the window. And I think they might be making a mistake of Eriksen. I thought they might have been making a mistake of James Rodriguez. And I think they might have made a mistake if they're going to got Isco. And that's now happening. And I think that's definitely coming to the fore. So, but hey, they could get Mustafi. Barcelona could end up getting Mustafi. They could, Zach. They could. Oh dear. Okay. So that kind of rounds today's thing off. So let's just finish the show off with a simple yes or no. Christian Eriksen in a swap deal, which is what's being proposed with Granit Xhaka. Permanently swap deal. Christian Eriksen, yes or no. I'm going to fall on the side of no, is where my head's at. Kian is going straight in, saying no. And speaking of which, if you haven't checked out the show that we did a little bit early on today with Graham Ingham, make sure you do. We talked about a brand new app that's live currently, especially for people in the UK. It's going to be rolling out to more territories as we go through, but make sure you do click on that video that we put up earlier on today. It was a really insightful one. Javier says no. Kuriko says no. Patrick says no. Gary says no. Richard says no. Iron Cub says permanently no, but I'm assuming maybe yes on a loan. And that's what Elliot Roberts says. Tomodo says no. Elliot says yes on loan. Alexius says no. Zach says time to drink, lads. Love the channel and the content. Stay safe. Enjoy your evening, mate. Kiluzon says yes, but a loan deal only. Alan says no. Christopher says yes. We need to take over Ozil's desk chair on the sidelines. He's gone. Yeah, we need someone who's going to work our social feeds. Matt Gray says yes. Senki says no. Chanda says yes. Javier says once a Spurs, always a Spurs. Very true. Yonick says yes for the FIFA merchant. Yonick Mac for Nainggolan. Alan says no. Beast Titan says, I want somebody than Xhaka. If Eriksen is available, yes, I will take him. Joseph Maseko says yes on loan. Negative Nelly Tom, yes you are, Beast. That's why we love you. Don't ever change, son. That's going to wrap up today's show. Thank you ever so much for listening, people. I really appreciate if you drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here for whatever reason. But it's been a pleasure to speak to you. Please check out the video we done earlier on today. Please check out the videos that we've done over the international break. We've tried to cover this really dipping, boring period that it is with some content for you, and I hope you've appreciated it. We're getting back to football now. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We are only mere days away from my birthday. No, yes, but no. The main thing we're thinking about is, of course, Sunday and Arsenal's game. On Saturday, on my birthday, we'll be doing a preview show ahead of that, and I'll probably do a podcast at some point previewing that as well with some of the boys to get their thoughts about how they may have reflected over the course of this international break. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, as it always is. And as always, up the Arsenal.